The night the helicopter landed, the hospital forgot how to breathe. Windows rattled. Ceiling lights trembled. Nurses froze mid-step as the deep grinding thunder of rotors washed over the ER like an incoming storm. A uniformed officer pressed a hand to his earpiece face, draining of color, and asked a question no one expected to hear in a civilian hospital. "Confirm the name again." Outside on the helipad, a towering silhouette stepped from the aircraft. Calm, deliberate, undeniable authority in every stride. Inside the ER, a 7-foot giant lay face down on the floor, wrists pinned, his rage silenced by a single precise move from a nurse everyone had laughed at an hour earlier. No one knew who she really was. No one knew why the military was here. And no one yet understood that what happened in this ER wasn't an accident, it was a reckoning. Some nights reveal who holds power. Others reveal who deserves it. Before the story begins, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. We read every comment. And if you're drawn to stories where truth surfaces under pressure, consider subscribing. This one only gets heavier from here. Emma Carter arrived for her first night shift 10 minutes early, not because she was eager, but because she hated rushing. The automatic doors slid open with a tired sigh, releasing the familiar cocktail of antiseptic, burnt coffee, and human urgency. County General's ER never slept, it only pulsed like a heart that refused to slow down. At 24, Emma looked younger than her age. 5'6", narrow shoulders, brown hair pulled into a regulation bun so tight it tugged at her temples. Her scrubs were crisp, unwrinkled, almost defiant against the chaos around her. She stood for a moment just inside the entrance, eyes scanning exits, corners, reflections in glass. A habit she never explained. "New blood," a voice called. Charge nurse Diane Mallory didn't look up from the board as she spoke. Late 40s, efficient. Sharp eyes that missed nothing and forgave even less. Her badge was heavy with authority. "Yes, ma'am," Emma said evenly. "Emma Carter. Night rotation." Diane finally glanced over. Her gaze lingered, assessing. Too calm, too quiet. "You're young." "I can work," Emma replied. A snort from the triage desk. "We'll see." The ER was already overflowing. Flu season. A 3-car pileup on I-95. A psych hold screaming obscenities behind curtain 4. Monitors beeped in overlapping rhythms. Somewhere a baby cried thin, relentless. Diane tapped the board. "You're on fast track with Patel. Don't freelance. Don't escalate." "And don't," she paused, eyes narrowing, "play hero." Emma nodded. "Understood." Dr. Raj Patel emerged from behind a curtain, wiping his hands. Early 50s, calm voice, permanent creases between his brows from years of bad news. He offered Emma a quick, reassuring smile. "Welcome to the circus." "I've seen worse," Emma said before thinking. Patel chuckled, assuming it was bravado. "Give it time." She took vitals, changed linens, steadied, shaking hands. Her movements were economical, precise. She spoke softly to patients, but with a confidence that made them listen. A combative drunk calmed when she met his eyes and said his name. A panicking teenager slowed her breathing to match Emma's without realizing it. Diane watched from a distance, arms crossed. Something about the rookie bothered her, not incompetence, but the opposite. People didn't flinch around Emma the way they usually did with someone new. They leaned in. Halfway through the shift, security wheeled past, tense. "What's that about?" Patel asked. Diane's jaw tightened. "Brock Vance." Emma paused mid-chart. The name hit like a dropped weight, small but unmistakable. "Repeat offender," Diane continued. 6 foot something, built like a truck. Last time he was here, he put a nurse in a sling and a guard in stitches. Court-ordered anger management. Guess how that went. 7 feet security muttered as they passed. "At least." Emma's pen stilled for half a second. Then she kept writing. An hour later, the ER doors slammed open hard enough to rattle the glass, shouting, laughter. The scrape of shoes skidding on tile. Emma looked up just in time to see a wall of a man push through the entrance like it was nothing more than a suggestion. Brock Vance. He filled the doorway, 7 feet tall, easily 300 pounds, shoulders stretched tight against a sleeveless hoodie despite the cold. Veins stood out on his neck. His pupils were blown wide, jaw grinding like he was chewing gravel. He smelled of alcohol and sweat and something sharper, adrenaline. 2 men trailed him, phones already raised, recording. "I need a doctor," Brock roared. Right now, conversations died mid-sentence. A child whimpered. A monitor alarmed unnoticed. Diane stepped forward, voice clipped. "Sir, you need to calm down." "You can't come in here yelling." Brock ignored her, scanning the room with predatory intent. "I'm not here for you." Security moved to intercept, but Brock swung an arm out, sending one guard stumbling back into a chair. Plastic cracked. A woman screamed. "Everybody back," Dr. Patel shouted. Brock grabbed an ivy pole and ripped it from its stand with a metallic shriek. He lifted it like a spear, eyes locked on a terrified man near triage who shrank behind a curtain. "There you are," Brock said, grinning. "Thought you could hide." The crowd surged away, bodies colliding. Someone fell. Someone else dropped a tray of instruments that clattered across the floor like thrown coins. Diane's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with fear. "Emma, get back." But Emma had already stepped forward. Not close, not confrontational, just enough to be seen. "Brock," she said. He froze. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried steady, controlled, cutting cleanly through the noise. Brock turned surprised. "Do I know you?" "No," Emma said. "But I know what you're doing. And it ends here." He laughed, a booming sound that echoed off the walls. "You're kidding, right?" He took a step toward her, IV pole lowering like a threat. "Move." Emma didn't move. Instead, she shifted her stance, subtle, almost invisible. Weight balanced. Hands open, palms out. Non-threatening. Ready. "Put it down," she said. Diane felt her stomach drop. This wasn't training. This wasn't policy. This was a rookie nurse standing in front of a man who could fold her in half. "Emma," Diane barked. "Stand down," Brock lunged. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Emma didn't try to stop his momentum. She stepped in, not back inside the arc of the IV pole. Her left hand caught Brock's wrist at the exact moment his weight shifted forward. Her right forearm slid under his elbow, levering upward as her hip rotated, stealing his center of gravity. There was a sharp crack as Brock's knee hit the floor. Then the floor hit him. Hard. The IV pole skittered away. Brock's face smashed against the tile, breath exploding from his lungs in a stunned grunt. Emma flowed with him, knee pinning his shoulder, wrist locked, pressure precise and merciless. "Airway clear," she said calmly. "Call security. Now." For a heartbeat, the ER was silent. Phones kept recording. Then Brock roared, pain, rage, disbelief, all tangled together. He struggled, but the harder he fought, the tighter the hold became. "How?" he gasped. "Who the hell are you?" Emma didn't answer. She tightened her grip just enough to remind him he wasn't in control anymore. And for the first time since he'd charged through the doors, Brock Vance stopped moving. Security finally surged in 4 guards, piling onto Brock Vance, as if afraid he might reassemble himself from pure rage. Metal cuffs snapped shut around his wrists. He spat, curses, veins bulging, face red and slick with sweat, but he didn't get back up. Not this time. Emma released the hold, only when the lead guard nodded that they had him. She stepped back, smoothly, hands already lifting, palms open again, no threat, no triumph, just control. The ER exhaled all at once. A woman sobbed. Someone laughed high and hysterical. A child clung to his mother's leg, eyes wide as saucers. Phones stayed, raised greedily, capturing the aftermath. Diane stared at Emma as if seeing her for the first time. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. Emma glanced down at Brock, who was still gasping then at the fallen IV pole. "A fall risk," she said. He slipped. A few people chuckled nervously. Diane did not. Dr. Patel crouched to assess Brock's hands, steady despite the adrenaline buzzing through the room. "Vitals," he said. Now, Emma was already there, checking Brock's airway, fingers moving with clinical efficiency. Her touch was firm but professional, like the violence had never happened. Brock snarled up at her eyes, burning. "You think you won something," he hissed. "This isn't over." Emma met his gaze for a single beat, long enough for something unspoken to pass between them. Recognition flickered across Brock's face. Not familiarity, calculation. Then he smiled. It was not the smile of a drunk or a bully. It was the smile of a man who believed the system bent in his favor. "Get her name," Brock said loudly, to no one in particular. "I want it." Security hauled him upright and dragged him toward the holding room. As he passed Emma, he leaned close enough that only she could hear him. "You move like someone who's been trained," he murmured. "Careful, nurse. People like you don't stay invisible forever." The doors slammed shut behind him. For a moment, the ER stood frozen in the wake of what had almost happened. Then the questions came. What was that move? Is she military? Did you see how fast he went down? Someone call admin, this is already online. Diane turned sharply. Everyone back to work. Now. Her eyes snapped back to Emma. My office. Now. The charge nurse's office was barely bigger than a closet, walls plastered with schedules and policy memos. Diane shut the door with more force than necessary. "Explain," she said. Slowly. Emma rested her hands on the back of a chair but didn't sit. He was an immediate threat. I intervened. "You're a nurse," Diane shot back. "Not security. Not law enforcement. You don't do takedowns." Emma didn't flinch. "I prevented harm." "You put the hospital at risk," Diane snapped. "If that clip goes viral, and it will, admin is going to come down hard. Excessive force. Liability. Do you understand what kind of trouble this brings, yes?" Emma said quietly. "I do." Diane searched her face, looking for arrogance, fear, something. She found neither. "Where did you learn that?" Diane asked. Emma hesitated. "Just a fraction of a second. Training," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give." Diane scoffed, but there was unease beneath it. "You think being calm makes you untouchable. This place eats people alive, especially ones who stand out." Emma met her eyes. "I didn't come here to stand out." A knock interrupted them. An administrator in a tailored suit poked his head in Mark Holloway. Late 40s, polished smile that never reached his eyes. "Diane," he said, "we need a report. Now." His gaze slid to Emma, measuring. "You're the nurse." "Yes, sir." Holloway nodded, lips thinning. "I'll need a written statement, security footage, witness names. Until then, you're on administrative pause." Diane stiffened. "Mark, standard procedure," Holloway cut in smoothly. "We can't afford surprises." Emma absorbed that without comment. "Where do you want the statement?" "HR," Holloway said. "And stay available." As he left, Diane sagged slightly, anger replaced by something closer to worry. "I warned you not to play hero." Emma's voice was steady. "People were going to get hurt." Diane rubbed her temples. "You don't understand how this works." Emma didn't argue. She simply nodded and went to write. The holding room was loud again, Brock shouting for a lawyer, for water, for respect. His companions had vanished. The phones were gone, but the damage was already spreading. Patel found Emma near the nurse's station an hour later. "They shouldn't bench you," he said quietly. "You saved lives." Emma gave a small shrug. "Saving lives doesn't always count." Patel studied her. "You've done this before." "Yes." Where she met his gaze, polite but closed. Another life. Across the ER, Diane watched them, unease deepening. Something about the way Emma stood, relaxed, alert, like she was waiting for the next wave, didn't fit the picture of a new graduate. In the holding room, Brock finally went quiet. Too quiet. A uniformed officer leaned in to check on him. Brock looked up, eyes sharp now, sobriety snapping into place like a switch. "You know who she is?" Brock asked casually. The officer frowned. "Who?" the nurse, Brock said. "Emma Carter." The name felt heavy in his mouth. Familiar. Dangerous. "No," the officer said. Why, Brock smiled again, slow and confident. "Because if she's who I think she is, this hospital just stepped into something way bigger than a viral video." He leaned back against the bench, wrists cuffed, utterly unbothered. "Make the call," Brock added. "Tell them she's here." In the corridor outside, Mark Holloway lowered his phone after a hushed conversation, jaw tight. "Yes," he said softly to himself. "We'll keep it quiet." And somewhere deep in the hospital, Emma felt the unmistakable pressure of a line being crossed, one she had hoped to leave behind forever. By the time dawn crept toward the windows, the ER felt like it had aged a year. The adrenaline crash came in waves. Nurses moved slower, voices lower. Every clang of a gurney wheel sounded too loud. Every overhead page too sharp. Emma sat alone in a small HR office, typing her incident report with the same measured precision she'd used on Brock's wrist. Time, location, threat assessment, intervention. She chose each word carefully. Outside the door, voices rose and fell. Excessive force. Lawsuit waiting to happen. Already trending. Emma finished the report and read it once. Then again. She saved the file and closed the laptop, folding her hands in her lap. Her fingers bore faint calluses along the knuckles, old, well-earned. She stared at them for a moment, then tucked them away. The door opened. Mark Holloway stepped in, followed by Diane and a woman from legal whose expression suggested she had already decided the outcome. Emma Holloway began, all practiced calm. "Thank you for your cooperation." "Of course," Emma said. Holloway sat, steepling his fingers. "Let's be clear. What happened tonight was dramatic, heroic, some might say. But hospitals don't run on heroics. They run on protocols." "I followed protocol," Emma replied evenly. "Immediate threat, imminent harm." Legal cleared her throat. "You are not certified security." "No," Emma said. "I'm certified to keep people alive." Diane shifted uncomfortably. She hadn't slept. The bravado from earlier had worn thin. "Mark, he was going to hurt someone." "I know," Holloway said quickly. "And we're grateful no one was seriously injured. But the optics don't breathe," Emma said quietly. "Patients do." A pause. Not long, but enough. Holloway's jaw tightened. "This isn't a debate. Until further notice, you're suspended pending review." Diane's head snapped up. "That's not fair." "It's necessary," Holloway said. "For the hospital." Emma absorbed it. She'd expected this. Institutions protected themselves first. They always had. "May I ask something?" Emma said. Holloway gestured. "Briefly. Is Brock Vance being charged?" Holloway hesitated just a fraction too long. "He's being transferred to where a facility better equipped to handle him." Emma met his eyes. "That's not an answer." Holloway stood. "This meeting is over." As they left, Diane lingered. Her voice dropped. "I didn't know you could do that," she said, not accusing, confessing. Emma looked at her. Neither did he. Diane exhaled shakily. "Be careful. I always am." The holding room was empty when Emma passed by later, escorted by security to collect her things. The bench where Brock had sat was wiped clean like he'd never been there. But his words lingered. "People like you don't stay invisible forever." In the parking garage, Emma felt it before she saw it, the prickle at the base of her neck. She slowed, scanning reflections in windshields, shadows between pillars. A man leaned against a concrete column near her car. Mid-30s, clean cut, not hospital staff. "Miss Carter," he said pleasantly. "Rough night." "Who are you?" Emma asked. "A friend," he said. "Of someone you met earlier." Emma stopped an arm's length away. "If you're here to threaten me—" "Relax," he said, holding up a hand. "Just a message." He slipped a folded piece of paper onto the hood of her car and stepped back. "Stop digging," he said softly. "Or next time the floor won't be so forgiving." Then he walked away, disappearing between parked vehicles. Emma unfolded the paper. 3 words written neatly. "We know you." She stood very still. Back inside, Brock Vance was enjoying a cup of water in a temporary holding office, legs stretched out, cuffs loosened. A local detective paced, frustrated. "You're lucky," the detective muttered. "If it were up to me," Brock cut him off with a grin. "It's not." The door opened. A man in a tailored suit entered. No badge, no introduction. He dismissed the detective with a look. "Time," Brock asked. "Soon," the man said. "But we need confirmation." Brock leaned forward. "She moved exactly like I thought. Low center, joint control, no wasted motion." The man's eyes sharpened. "You're sure I don't forget muscle memory," Brock said, "especially when it drops me on my face." The man nodded once. "I'll make the call." As he left, Brock chuckled unbothered. "Told you he called after him. People like her always come back." Emma didn't go home. She drove aimlessly for 20 minutes, windows down, letting cold air burn away the noise in her head. When she finally stopped, it was at a quiet overlook she hadn't visited in years. She sat on the hood of her car and stared at the city lights. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She answered. "Emma." A familiar voice came through, calm and unmistakable. "You broke your rule." Emma closed her eyes. "I had to." A pause. "Are you safe?" "For now." "Name Brock Vance." The voice on the other end went very still. "Where, County General?" Another pause. Longer this time. He was calculating. "Do not engage," he said finally. "Stay inside. We'll handle it." Emma looked out over the city, jaw set. "They already are." "I know," he replied. "That's why this ends now." The line went dead. Emma sat there until the sun began to rise, painting the sky in pale streaks of gold. Somewhere in the city, gears were turning quietly, relentlessly. Back at County General, Mark Holloway received a call that made his blood run cold. "Mark," a voice said without preamble. "We need to talk about the nurse." Holloway swallowed. "Which one, Emma Carter?" Holloway glanced at the ER floor below his office, suddenly aware of how thin the walls felt. "Yes," he said carefully. "What about her?" On the other end, the voice hardened. "You should have let her go." Holloway stared at the phone. As the call ended, a sinking certainty settling in his chest. Whatever he thought he was controlling had just slipped beyond his reach. By the following evening, County General was pretending nothing had happened. Fresh coffee replaced the bitter sludge from the night before. The waiting room chairs were wiped clean. Security stood straighter, spoke softer. Administration emails praised swift response and team coordination without naming names. Emma Carter's name was conspicuously absent. Her suspension notice arrived at 6:03 p.m., polite and bloodless. Administrative leave pending investigation. No timeline, no apology, just silence wrapped in corporate language. Emma read it once, then deleted it. She returned to the hospital anyway, not in scrubs, not through the front doors. She entered through the side entrance used by transport staff badge, still working despite everything. That bothered her. It meant someone had decided not to lock her out yet. Inside, the ER hummed with a forced normalcy. Dr. Patel was at the central desk reviewing labs. He looked up sharply when he saw her. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I know," Emma replied. "I'm not clocking in." Patel hesitated, then lowered his voice. "They're moving, Brock." Emma's eyes sharpened. "When tonight?" he said. "Transfer order came down this afternoon." No explanation. To where Patel shook his head. "That's the thing. It's not a medical facility." Emma felt a familiar tension settle into her shoulders. "Who signed it?" "Administration," Patel said. Holloway pushed it through. Across the room, Diane Mallory barked instructions at a pair of interns. She looked exhausted, like she'd been holding the ER together by force of will alone. When she saw Emma, her expression hardened, then cracked. "Office," Diane said curtly, jerking her head toward the hallway. Once inside, Diane shut the door and leaned against it. "You're suspended." "I know." "Then why are you here?" Emma met her gaze. "Because Brock Vance shouldn't be transferred quietly." Diane laughed, once bitter. "You think I don't know that I tried to fight it? Legal shut me down." "Why?" Emma asked. Diane pushed off the door, pacing. "Because someone upstairs is scared. Not of Brock. Of what comes with him." Emma nodded slowly. "He's protected." Diane stopped. "You know that for sure, yes." Silence stretched between them, heavy, with things neither wanted to say. "You're not just a nurse," Diane said finally. Emma didn't answer. Diane exhaled. "Fine. Don't tell me. But listen to me, if you keep pushing this, they will bury you. I've seen it happen." Emma's voice was calm. "I've seen what happens when no one pushes back." A knock interrupted them. A uniformed officer stuck his head in. "Charge, we've got a problem." In the ambulance bay, 2 black SUVs idled alongside a transport van. No markings, no sirens. Men in plain clothes moved with quiet efficiency, eyes scanning hands never far from concealed weapons. This was not a standard prisoner transfer. Emma watched from behind a column, pulse steady but alert. She recognized the posture, the spacing, the way they controlled the environment without appearing to. Holloway emerged, flanked by security. He looked tense, but relieved, like a man handing off a burden. One of the men nodded to him. "We'll take it from here." Brock Vance was brought out, last wrists cuffed in front, expression smug. He spotted Emma immediately. "Well," he said loudly, "look who couldn't stay away." One of the men moved to hush him. Brock ignored it. "Funny thing," Brock continued, eyes locked on Emma. "I thought you'd disappear after last night. Guess habits die hard." Emma stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "Where are you taking him?" she asked. The man in charge turned, assessing her. "That's classified." "Bullshit," Emma said evenly. "You don't move a violent offender out of a hospital undercover unless you're hiding something." Holloway stiffened. "Emma, this is not your concern." "It is if he hurts someone," Emma shot back. "Again." Brock laughed. "Hear that? She still thinks she's in charge." Emma ignored him, eyes never leaving the man in charge. "You want to move him, do it legally. With oversight." The man's jaw tightened. "Step back, ma'am." "Or what?" Emma asked. "You'll add me to the list." For a moment no one moved. Then Brock leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to carry. "Tell them the word," he said to Emma. "The one you don't want them to hear." Emma's fingers curled slowly at her sides. Diane watched from the doorway, heart pounding. She didn't know what Brock meant, but she knew Emma did. "Say it," Brock pressed. "Let's see what happens." Emma met his gaze. "You don't get to control this." Brock's smile widened. "I already am." The man in charge raised a hand. "Enough. Load him." As Brock was shoved into the van, he twisted just enough to catch Emma's eye. "This ends the same way it always does," he said softly. "People like you clean up the mess. People like me walk." The doors slammed shut. The convoy rolled out, tires crunching over gravel, disappearing into the night. Emma stood there long after they were gone. Diane approached her slowly. "What the hell was that?" Emma exhaled. "A mistake." "Who's everyone's?" Emma said. "Including mine." Diane studied her. "You going to tell me what's really going on?" Emma considered it. Diane had been hard on her, but she'd also stood between staff and danger more times than anyone gave her credit for. "Brock is connected to something bigger," Emma said carefully, "and people are scared of what he can expose." Diane swallowed. "And you, I'm inconvenient," Emma replied. Later that night, Emma sat in her car across the street from the hospital, watching lights flicker on and off. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time she answered. "They moved him," she said without preamble. "I know," the voice replied. "That wasn't the plan. Then your people aren't in control." A pause, then quieter. "Neither are you." Emma looked at the hospital, at the ER doors where everything had changed. "Then it's time we were." Silence. "Helipad," the voice said finally. "Midnight." The call ended. Emma checked the time. 1:12 p.m. She started the engine. The helipad lights cut through the darkness like a silent invitation. Emma parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest hands, buried in the pockets of her jacket breath, steady in the cold air. Midnight had passed. The city below hummed, unaware that decisions were being made above it, decisions that would never make the news. A single helicopter idled on the pad, rotors still crew standing by with the patience of people used to waiting. 2 figures stood near the access door, silhouettes against the glow. One turned as Emma approached. "Didn't think you'd come," he said. "You called," Emma replied. Colonel James Holloway, no relation to the hospital administrator, looked older than she remembered. More lines. Same eyes. The kind that saw too much and filed it away. "You were supposed to stay quiet," he said. "I tried." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "You always do." The second figure stepped forward, a woman in plain clothes, posture unmistakably military. "I'm Special Agent Laura Keene," she said. "We're running a joint inquiry." Emma's jaw tightened. "About Brock. And about who's been protecting him," Keene said. "You made that harder tonight." Emma looked past them at the helicopter. "You moved too slow." Holloway sighed. "You don't understand the pressure." "I understand leverage," Emma said. "Brock has it, and he's not afraid to use it." Keene crossed her arms. "You dropped a 7-foot man with one move in a civilian ER. That got attention." "Good," Emma said. "He was going to kill someone." Holloway's voice softened. "You broke cover." Emma met his gaze. There was no cover left to keep. They moved inside the access corridor, away from the wind. Keene pulled out a tablet, swiped through images, surveillance stills, financial records, a web of connections that tightened with each slide. "Brock Vance worked security for a private contractor overseas," Keene said. "Unofficial jobs. Witness intimidation. 2 deaths tied to his unit, both cases buried." Emma's throat tightened. She recognized one of the photos, a dusty roadside smoke curling into the sky. She'd been there. She'd held pressure until her hands shook. "He knows names," Emma said. "He knows money," Keane replied. "And he knows where bodies are buried, sometimes literally." Holloway rubbed his temples. "We were building a case, quietly." And now Emma asked. "Now he's being extracted by people who don't want him talking," Keane said. "Tonight's transfer was a test." Emma's eyes sharpened. "He won't make it to wherever they're taking him." Holloway looked at her. "That's why we called you." Emma laughed once, humorless. "You suspended me 12 hours ago." "In public," Holloway said. "In private, you're the only one," Brock reacted to. Keane leaned in. "He recognized your movement, your cadence. He thinks you're the weak link." Emma's voice went flat. "He thinks wrong." Silence settled. The helicopter's lights flickered. "What do you want from me?" Emma asked. "Your instincts," Keane said. "And your restraint." Emma held her gaze. "Those don't always come together." Holloway spoke quietly. "He's coming back to the hospital." Emma stiffened. "That's insane." "He requested medical clearance mid-transfer," Keane said. "Chest pain, shortness of breath, or an excuse," Emma said. "Either way," Holloway added, "they're bringing him to the only place with plausible cover." Emma pictured the ER, the patients, the staff, Diane's tired eyes. "You're putting civilians in danger." "We'll have a perimeter," Keane said. "Unmarked. And if he runs," Holloway met her eyes. "That's where you come in." Emma exhaled slowly. "You want me to bait him?" Keane didn't deny it. "You're the only one he wants to talk to." Emma looked down at her hands. The calluses, the scars. "If this goes bad, we'll own it," Holloway said. "I promise." Emma looked up sharply. "Your promises don't stop bullets." Keane stepped closer. "Neither does doing nothing." The helicopter powered down completely, the sudden quiet pressing in. Emma made her decision. "Fine," she said. "But my way." Holloway nodded. "Name it." "I'm in the ER," Emma said. "Visible. No cuffs. No uniforms. You keep your distance." Keane frowned. "That's risky." "So is letting him think he's still in control," Emma replied. "He won't talk if he feels trapped." Holloway considered it, then nodded. "We can do that." Emma turned to leave. "If he tries to bolt, we intervene," Keane said. Emma paused. "No, you let me." Keane's eyes narrowed. "You're not authorized, I'm effective." Emma cut in. "Choose." A beat. Then Keane nodded once. 10 seconds. "Plenty," Emma said. Back at County General, the ER lights glared too bright. Diane Mallory stood at the charge desk, coffee untouched, jaw clenched. "Ambulance inbound," a tech called. "Prisoner transfer." Diane's stomach dropped. "Who Brock Vance?" The name rippled through the room like a shockwave. Diane turned and froze. Emma stood near the wall, hands clasped, eyes calm. "What are you doing here?" Diane hissed, dragging her aside. Emma met her gaze. Finishing what started. Diane swallowed. "They said you were suspended." "I am," Emma said. "But tonight that doesn't matter." Sirens approached, growing louder. Diane searched Emma's face, seeing something she hadn't before, not arrogance. "Resolve." "Tell me what you need," Diane said. Emma's shoulders eased a fraction. "Clear the bay. Lock the back exits. And trust me." The ambulance doors burst open moments later. Brock Vance was wheeled in, handcuffed, face pale but eyes sharp. He saw Emma instantly. "There you are," his grin said. The doors shut behind him, and the trap snapped closed. The moment Brock Vance crossed the threshold of the ER, the air changed. It wasn't the sirens fading outside or the doors sealing shut behind the gurney. It was the way people instinctively stepped back, as if the room itself remembered him. Nurses tightened their grips on charts. A security guard swallowed hard. Diane felt her pulse jump and forced it down. Brock lay strapped to the gurney chest, rising in deliberate, exaggerated breaths. Monitors beeped steadily. He looked every inch the patient now, pale, cooperative, almost fragile. Almost. "Chest pain," the paramedic reported. "Onset 20 minutes ago. Shortness of breath. History of hypertension." Dr. Patel nodded, already moving. "Let's get an EKG. Labs. Keep him monitored." Brock's eyes tracked Emma as she approached. "Didn't think you'd be my nurse again," he said, voice hoarse with mock vulnerability. Emma stopped at the foot of the bed. "I'm not." Brock chuckled, then winced theatrically. Shame. You've got a gentle touch. Diane watched from a few feet away, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. We'll keep security close, she murmured to Emma. Not too close, Emma replied quietly. He needs to feel comfortable. Diane's eyebrows shot up. Comfortable, loose, Emma said. Not cornered. Brock smirked. Hear that? She gets me. As the EKG leads were placed, Brock's breathing evened out suspiciously fast. Dr. Patel noticed but said nothing yet. He'd learned that pushing too early only made men like Brock dig in. Emma checked the IV-line fingers brushing Brock's wrist. He stiffened, then relaxed eyes flicking to her face. You're different tonight, he murmured. Less afraid. I'm not afraid of you, Emma said. Brock smiled. That's the problem. Minutes ticked by. The ER resumed a careful, watchful rhythm around them. Overhead lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall a code blue was called and resolved. Brock waited. Then he spoke again, louder this time. You know, I've been trying to remember where I've seen you move like that. Emma didn't respond. Overseas, Brock continued. Hot place. Dust everywhere. People screaming in a language I didn't speak. Diane's stomach dropped. Brock's eyes never left Emma. You were there, weren't you? Focus on your breathing, Emma said calmly. Oh, I am, Brock replied. I just want to make sure everyone else is. He turned his head, addressing the room. You know she's not just a nurse, right? Diane stepped forward. That's enough. Brock laughed weakly. Relax. I'm a patient. Or isn't that how this works anymore? Emma met Diane's eyes, a subtle shake of her head. Not yet. Dr. Patel studied the monitor. Your EKG is normal, Brock. Pain doesn't show on machines, Brock said quickly. Ask her. Emma leaned in slightly. Describe the pain. Brock's gaze sharpened, like something pressing. Heavy, like a hand. Emma nodded. And where does it go? Down my arm, Brock said, then smiled. Funny thing, I've felt this before. Right before someone tried to make me disappear. The room went very still. Brock lowered his voice. They won't do it here. Too many witnesses. Emma straightened. If you're faking, then what? Brock interrupted. You dropped me again, on camera this time. A tech cleared his throat nervously. Security's asking if... No, Emma said. Let him talk. Diane shot her a look but said nothing. Brock grinned, sensing momentum. You ever wonder why some people walk free no matter what they do? Emma held his gaze. Because others let them. Brock nodded. Smart answer, but incomplete. He shifted on the gurney, the cuffs clinking softly. I know things. Names, routes, payments. I know who signs off and who looks away. Diane felt a chill creep up her spine. This was bigger than she'd thought. And you think you can trade that? Emma asked. Brock's smile widened. Already did. Before Emma could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Two men in suits pushed through, flashing badges too quickly to read. Federal agents, one announced. We're here for the prisoner. Keen's people, Emma realized. Too early. Holloway's voice echoed from the hallway. What's going on? Brock's eyes lit up. See, told you. The agents approached the gurney. Brock Vance, you're being remanded into federal custody. Brock laughed. Which federal? The agent ignored him, reaching for the cuffs. That's when Brock moved. It wasn't fast. It was calculated. He screamed a raw, piercing sound and arched his back violently. The monitor spiked. Alarms blared. In the confusion, he twisted shoulder, slamming into the agent, sending him stumbling back. Cardiac event, someone shouted. Security surged forward. Emma reacted instantly, stepping in, hands firm on Brock's shoulders. Stop fighting, she commanded. Brock's eyes met hers, wild and gleaming. You see, he gasped loudly. They're trying to kill me. The words hit like a bomb. Phones appeared from nowhere. The second agent froze, suddenly aware of how this looked. Emma leaned close, her voice low and deadly calm. You push this, people get hurt. Brock smiled through labored breaths. Then make them listen. Outside, sirens wailed, media police, more backup converging. Keen appeared at the doorway, face tight. Holloway hovered behind her, sweating. This is spiraling, Diane muttered. Emma straightened, making a decision she'd hoped to avoid. She turned to Keen. He's lying. Keen's eyes flicked to Brock, then to the monitors. Prove it. Emma reached down and pressed two fingers against a precise point at Brock's neck. Brock's breath hitched involuntarily. Your heart's fine, Emma said clearly. Your fear response isn't. Brock snarled, trying to pull away. Get your hands off me. Emma didn't move. You want protection, tell them what you know. Brock's eyes darted to the agents, to the cameras, to the doors. Then he laughed. Okay, he said. Let's talk. The room leaned in. Rock took a breath and spoke a single word loud enough for everyone to hear. A name. One Emma hadn't heard in years. The color drained from her face. And somewhere above the hospital, rotors began to turn. The name Brock Vance spoke, didn't echo. It landed. Emma felt it in her chest, first a dull, sudden pressure like a hand closing around something fragile. For a split second, the ER vanished, replaced by heat and dust, and a sky the color of ash. Then the fluorescent lights snapped back into focus, too bright, too close. Dr. Patel stared at Brock. What did you say? Brock lay back against the gurney, satisfied. You heard me. Keen stiffened at the doorway. She hadn't expected that name, not here, not now. Phones were up again, lenses hungry, catching the micro-expressions no one could control. Diane looked from Brock to Emma, confusion giving way to alarm. Emma's face had gone still in a way Diane had never seen, no fear, no anger. Just calculation. Clear the bay, Emma said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. But it cut through the noise like a blade. Diane hesitated, then acted. You heard her. Everyone out now. Security ushered patients back, pulling curtains, locking doors. The agents tried to assert control, but the room was already shifting around Emma's voice, around the certainty it carried. Brock watched it happen, amused. See, still works. Emma stepped closer to the gurney. You don't get to use that name like a shield. Brock's grin faded just a touch. Touchy. Keen moved in keeping her voice low. Emma, that name is tied to an active classified inquiry. You should step back. Emma didn't look at her. He's baiting you. He's baiting you, Keen corrected. Brock's eyes flicked to Keen. She knows what I'm worth. You people, you're late. Outside, the sound of rotors grew louder, distant but unmistakable. The helipad lights flickered on automatically, triggered by an incoming flight plan. Dr. Patel swallowed. Is that? Yes, Keen said. And it shouldn't be. Brock laughed softly. Told you, they won't let me talk. The monitors began to chirp again, not alarms this time, but alerts. The ambulance bay cameras picked up movement. Unmarked vehicles. More suits. Emma took it all in with a single sweep of her eyes. He wants extraction chaos, she said. If he's moved now, someone dies. Keen's jaw tightened. We can't hold him indefinitely. You can for 10 minutes, Emma replied. If you want the truth. Brock scoffed. You think I'm scared of a timer? Emma leaned in close, her voice dropping to a register only he could hear. No, you're scared of silence. Brock's eyes narrowed. You've been loud your whole life, Emma continued, breaking things so people look at you. You don't survive the quiet. For the first time, Brock didn't smile. A shout came from the hallway. We've got incoming. The doors burst open and a team moved in, disciplined, fast, unmistakably military. No insignia visible, no wasted motion. They took positions without blocking sightlines, without escalating the room. The leader, a tall man with steel-gray hair, raised a hand. Hold. Everything froze. Brock's lips parted in triumph. Right on time. The man's gaze slid past Brock and locked on Emma. Recognition sparked, mutual restrained. Miss Carter, he said evenly. Step away from the detainee. Emma didn't move. He's not a detainee. He's leverage. The man's eyes hardened. You're out of your depth. Emma met his stare. So were you the last time you trusted him? A flicker, just a flicker, crossed the man's face. Keen watched, heart pounding. She hadn't known this was coming. Not like this. Brock cleared his throat loudly. Gentlemen, ladies, can we stop pretending you want me quiet? She wants me talking. Guess who wins? The gray-haired man stepped closer. You're coming with us. Brock laughed. Try. He twisted suddenly, slamming his cuffed hands down onto the gurney's rail. The motion yanked a cable loose. The monitor flatlined for half a second, long enough to trigger chaos. Code, someone yelled. In the confusion, Brock kicked, catching a tech in the thigh. Security surged. The military team moved to restrain. Stop, Emma shouted. It snapped them short. Emma placed one hand flat on Brock's chest, not hard, not gentle. Firm, anchoring. "This ends now," Brock gasped, breath hitching despite himself. "You don't command me." Emma leaned in until their foreheads were inches apart. "You don't command anyone." She straightened and turned to the gray-haired man. "You want him alive and talking, you back off." "And if we don't?" he asked. Emma's eyes flicked to the cameras, the phones, the agents, the staff. "Then whatever happens next is on you. In public." The rotors thundered overhead, now shaking the ceiling tiles. Dust sifted down in fine lines. The building groaned. The man assessed the room, the optics, the woman standing between him and his objective. 5 minutes, he said. "Then we take him." Emma nodded. "Fair." Brock's grin returned brittle. "You think 5 minutes is enough?" Emma looked at him. "It's more than you've ever had." She turned to Keane. "Record everything. Body cams. Audio. No edits." Keane hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." Emma faced Brock again. "Start talking." Brock licked his lips. The bravado drained a notch. "You don't have the authority." "Authority," Emma cut in. "You mean the kind that lets you walk after bodies hit the ground?" The room went dead silent. Brock swallowed. "Names," he said finally. "You want names?" "Yes," Emma said. He began to speak. At first it was careful. Half-truths. Deflections. But Emma didn't interrupt. She waited, letting the quiet do the work. Each pause stretched. Each silence pressed. The helicopter hovered impatient. Brock's voice cracked. "They paid us to scare people. To make problems go away." Who, Emma asked. He named contractors, middlemen, accounts. Keane's eyes widened. Agents exchanged looks. And the deaths Emma pressed. Brock hesitated. Orders. From whom Brock laughed weakly. "You know that answer." Emma did. But she made him say it. When he did, the room seemed to tilt. The gray-haired man swore under his breath. "That's enough," he snapped. "We're done." Emma shook her head. "Not yet." Brock's breathing was ragged now. "You said 5 minutes." Emma glanced at the clock. "We're at 4. Brock's eyes darted to the door. "You promised protection." "No," Emma said. "I promised truth." Sirens wailed below. Media vans. Police. The helicopter lifted, repositioning. The gray-haired man stepped back, furious. "You've just blown open something you can't close." Emma met his gaze. "Good." Brock sagged against the restraint, suddenly small. "You think this ends me?" Emma leaned close one last time. "No, it ends them." And as the doors burst open with federal marshals pushing through, the power in the room shifted not with a shout, but with a quiet, irreversible click. The click wasn't loud, but everyone felt it. Federal marshals flooded the ER bay in coordinated silence, replacing confusion with inevitability. Jackets marked U.S. Marshals appeared where unmarked uniforms had been seconds earlier. The gray-haired man stiffened authority, slipping from his posture as jurisdiction shifted beneath his feet. "Stand down," one marshal ordered, voice flat, unquestionable. "This detainee is now under federal protection." Brock Vance looked from face to face, his bravado fraying. "You can't do this," he protested, the words rushed now. "You don't know who you're dealing with." A marshal leaned in close. "We do." Emma stepped back at last, giving the team room. Her hands were steady, but her pulse finally made itself known, a deep, measured thud in her ears. She caught Diane's eye across the bay. Diane nodded once, tight, grateful, terrified. Keane moved to Emma's side. "You got it," she murmured. "All of it." "Not all," Emma said. "Enough." Brock was transferred to a secure gurney, restraints doubled, cameras rolling. As they wheeled him out, he craned his neck to keep Emma in view. "You think they'll protect you," he called. When this blows back, Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. The rotors overhead grew louder, then drifted away, no extraction, no quiet disappearance. The helicopter lifted and banked, abandoning the roof like a bad idea that had finally been recognized as such. Only then did the ER begin to move again. Patients were reassured, curtains reopened. Dr. Patel returned to triage with a steadiness that came from long practice. The night resumed, altered, but intact. In a glass-walled conference room off the main corridor, Mark Holloway sat rigidly in a chair, legal counsel flanking him. A marshal stood at the door. The hospital administrator's tie was loosened, his confidence gone. "This is a misunderstanding," Holloway said for the third time. "I acted in the hospital's best interest." Keane slid a recorder onto the table. "You interfered with a federal investigation." "I protected my staff," Holloway snapped. Emma stepped into the room. Holloway's eyes widened. "You?" "Yes," Emma said. "Me?" "You went rogue," Holloway said, desperation creeping in. "You endangered patients." Emma met his gaze. "You endangered truth." Keane didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke now, recordings, names, accounts. The walls were closing in with polite efficiency. Outside, Diane paced, then stopped short when Emma emerged. "They're taking him?" Diane asked. "Yes." And Holloway, Emma nodded. "Also yes." Diane's shoulders sagged. She let out a breath that had been trapped since the night before. "I should have listened to my gut." "You did," Emma said. "Eventually." Diane laughed weakly. "I thought being in charge meant controlling the chaos." Emma glanced back toward the ER. "It means standing in it." As dawn approached again, the hospital settled into a strange calm, the kind that comes after a storm passes but leaves debris to be counted. Media vans clustered outside. Phones buzzed. Statements were drafted. Emma sat alone on a bench near the ambulance bay, jacket pulled tight, watching steam rise from a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Keane joined her. "You're going to be called in," she said. "Formal statements, hearings." Emma nodded. "I know. There will be pressure." "I know." Keane hesitated. "You could have walked away." Emma looked up. So could he. Keane studied her. "Why didn't you?" Emma thought of the frightened patient behind the curtain. The tech who'd been kicked. The names Brock had spoken, the silence that had protected them. "Because hospitals shouldn't be hunting grounds," she said. Keane nodded, understanding dawning. "You're not going back to quiet after this." Emma smiled faintly. "Quiet doesn't mean invisible." Later that morning, as the sun bled through the high windows, Dr. Patel found Emma charting out of habit more than obligation. "They'll reinstate you," he said gently. "Eventually." Emma didn't look up. "Maybe." "You're good here," he added. "The patients trust you." Emma paused. "Do you?" Patel smiled. "I did before tonight." Diane cleared her throat from the doorway. "HR wants a word," she said, then added quickly. "Not the scary kind." Emma stood. "I'll be right there." As she passed, Diane, the charge nurse, reached out, stopping her with a hand on her arm. "For what it's worth," Diane said, voice thick, "I'm glad you were on my floor." Emma met her eyes. "So am I." Outside, a marshal escorted Brock Vance into a black vehicle. His head was down now. No grin. No audience. As the door closed, he looked up, once caught Emma's gaze through the glass. "You think this makes you safe?" he mouthed. Emma didn't respond. The vehicle pulled away, swallowed by traffic. In its wake, the hospital stood bruised, honest, still breathing. And for the first time in a long while, Emma Carter felt the quiet settle, not the dangerous kind, but the kind earned by facing what everyone else tried to outrun. The quiet didn't last. By mid-morning, County General was surrounded by it. News vans stacked 3 deep along the curb, satellite dishes craned skyward like metal flowers. Reporters rehearsed questions into cameras while producers barked updates through headsets. Inside, the hospital tried to function as if it weren't the epicenter of something much larger than medicine. Emma sat in a small interview room with no windows and a single recorder on the table. 2 federal investigators occupied the opposite chairs. One typed. The other watched her like he was mapping terrain. "Start from the beginning," the typist said. "Your relationship to Brock Vance." "There wasn't one," Emma replied. "Not personal. But you recognized his tactics." "Yes." From where Emma paused, not long, just enough to choose the truth that wouldn't fracture into 10 new questions. "From prior service." The investigator nodded. "Medical combat medicine," Emma said. "Embedded support." The word combat changed the temperature of the room. They moved methodically. The takedown, the threat assessment, the name Brock had spoken. Each answer was precise, stripped of drama. Emma knew better than to embellish. Facts had a way of becoming weapons in the wrong hands. At the end, the investigator clicked off the recorder. "You understand, this may go to a grand jury." "I do, and you're prepared for the scrutiny." Emma met his gaze. "I already lived through worse." Outside the room, Diane paced again, stopped again, paced again. When the door opened and Emma stepped out, Diane didn't pretend not to be relieved. "They're keeping you a while," Diane said. "But HR, they want you back on nights, if you want it." Emma blinked. "That was fast," Diane snorted. "Turns out viral hero nurse plays well when the truth comes out." Emma glanced toward the windows where camera flashes strobed. "I'm not a hero." "No," Diane agreed. "You're a liability, but the kind we need." Emma smiled, despite herself. Down the hall, Mark Holloway emerged from an office flanked by marshals. His suit looked rumpled now, his hairline damp with sweat. He didn't look at anyone until his eyes found Emma's. For a split second, anger flared, then collapsed into something smaller. Fear. "This didn't have to happen," Holloway said hoarsely as he passed. Emma held his gaze. "It did." He looked away. As the elevator doors closed on him, Diane exhaled. "I keep thinking about the shortcuts," she said quietly. "All the times we told ourselves it was easier to look away." Emma nodded. Shortcuts always cost someone else. The afternoon blurred into signatures and statements. By evening, the hospital released a carefully worded announcement affirming cooperation with federal authorities and praising staff for professional conduct under pressure. Names were still withheld. For now, Emma returned to the ER for the first time since the night before. The floor looked the same, curtains, carts, scuffed linoleum, but the way people looked at her had changed. There was respect there now, and curiosity, and something like relief. "Glad you're back," a tech murmured as she passed. Emma nodded. "Me too." Dr. Patel caught her at the medroom door. "I hear you're officially unsuspended. For now." He smiled. "That's enough." A call came through near midnight. Diane answered, listened, then motioned Emma over. "Helipad," Diane said. "They're back." Emma's shoulders tensed. "Who?" Diane swallowed. "Uniforms." They reached the roof to find 2 vehicles parked and a small group waiting. This time there was no helicopter, just quiet authority. A man in dress uniform stepped forward, rank unmistakable even without insignia. "Emma Carter," he said. "I'm Major General Thomas Hale." Emma stood straighter without thinking. "Sir." He studied her, not unkindly. "At ease." She exhaled. "You created quite the ripple," Hale said. "We're here to close a loop." Keane joined them, eyes sharp. "The testimony Brock gave aligns with classified intel. We're moving arrests." Hale nodded. "Your actions accelerated that timeline." Emma hesitated. "And the cost?" Hale met her gaze. "There's always a cost. But sometimes delay costs more." He handed her a sealed envelope. "Your record." Emma opened it. Inside, formal commendation. Reinstatement of honors she hadn't realized she'd lost. A sentence at the bottom in crisp type. "Service acknowledged." Her throat tightened. "I didn't do it for this," she said quietly. "I know," Hale replied. "That's why it matters." As they left, the general paused. "You have options now." Emma looked back at the glowing windows of the ER. "I've made my choice." Hale followed her gaze and nodded once satisfied. The night settled. The media thinned. The hospital breathed. Emma took a moment alone near the ambulance bay, phone in hand. She typed a message she'd rewritten a dozen times. "It's done. I stayed." A reply came almost instantly. "Proud of you." Emma slipped the phone away. Inside, a patient called out for help. A monitor beeped. Life pressed on, insistent and fragile. Emma turned back toward the doors, not as a secret, not as a shadow, but as exactly what she had claimed to be from the start. A nurse. The arrests didn't come with sirens. They came with emails, quiet knock and talks, and doors that didn't reopen. By the end of the week, 3 contractors were in custody, 2 shell companies were frozen, and a former liaison disappeared from a board roster so completely it was as if his name had never existed. The news called it a widening inquiry. The staff at County General called it vindication and slept a little better because of it. Emma returned to the rhythm of nights. It was strange how quickly the ER reclaimed her, how easily the extraordinary was folded back into the ordinary. A trauma at 213A. M. A psych consult at 340. A quiet death just before dawn, the kind that leaves no mess but changes everyone who witnesses it. She didn't talk about Brock. No one did. The gurney he'd occupied had been cleaned, the memory bleached away by routine. but the space he'd carved in people's minds remained. Diane noticed it first. It was in the way staff deferred to Emma without being told, in the way security made eye contact with her before stepping in the way patients calmed when she spoke, even when her words carried bad news. "You didn't ask for this," Diane said one night as they stood over the charge desk watching the floor settle. "The influence." Emma adjusted the board magnets. "I didn't refuse it either." Diane nodded. "Fair." HR called Emma in again, not to threaten but to formalize. The administrator who sat across from her this time had a different posture, a different smile. She spoke about leadership opportunities and retention and night shift stability. "We'd like you to consider a trauma nurse lead role," the administrator said. "Provisional to start." Emma considered the ceiling tile above the woman's head. "I don't want an office." "We know," the administrator said. "That's why we're asking." Emma signed. The night she told Dr. Patel, he laughed softly. "You're going to hate the paperwork." "I already do," Emma said. "But you'll protect your people," he replied. "That's what this is." Protection became the work between the work. Emma noticed who was burning out before they asked for help. She corrected shortcuts without humiliating anyone. She challenged decisions quietly, with evidence, with patience. It didn't make her popular with everyone. It made her trusted. Diane watched it happen with something like awe. "You changed the floor," she said one morning as the sun crept in pale and thin. "Without blowing it up." Emma shrugged. "Floors don't need explosions. They need load-bearing walls." The federal inquiry reached the hospital in waves. Subpoenas, interviews, carefully phrased questions that tested boundaries without crossing them. Emma answered when asked. She didn't volunteer. She didn't hide. One afternoon, Keane found her in the supply room, inventorying IV kits like nothing in the world could be more important. "You're not supposed to be back here alone," Keane said. Emma smiled faintly. "I like the quiet." Keane leaned against the shelf. "Brock's cooperating. Partially." "Partially is enough," Emma said. "It's costing him," Keane added. "Protective custody. No favors." Emma nodded once. "That's the deal." Keane hesitated. "You know he keeps asking about you." Emma met her eyes. "He can ask." "Do you want to talk to him?" "No." Keane watched her for a beat, then nodded. "Good." The day Brock was formally charged, the news finally used Emma's name. Not her full history. Not the parts she'd sealed away. Just enough. Nurse subdues attacker. Hospital staff praised. Federal case expands. Emma turned off the TV in the break room and went back to work. That night, the ER faced a bus rollover on Route 7. Multiple traumas. Blood on gloves. Orders snapping through the air. Emma took the floor without raising her voice, assigning tasks with a clarity that cut through panic. A young nurse froze mid-procedure. Emma stepped in, guided her hands, breathed with her until the moment passed. Afterward, the nurse cried in the bathroom. Emma waited outside, then handed her a paper towel and said, "You did it. You didn't quit." The nurse nodded, shaky but proud. That was the work. Near the end of the shift, Diane found Emma by the windows, watching the sky lighten. "They're offering you day shift," Diane said. "Admin thinks it's a reward." Emma smiled. "I'll stay." Diane laughed. "Of course you will." The call came just before changeover. A number Emma hadn't seen in years. She answered without speaking. I heard the voice said, "Familiar, older, tired. You stood your ground." Emma closed her eyes. "I stood where I was needed." A pause. "You always did." "I'm staying," Emma said. "Here." "I know," the voice replied. "That's why I called." They didn't say goodbye. They didn't need to. As the sun rose, County General shed its night skin. Patients were discharged. Families arrived with coffee and hope. The ER reset. Emma took one last look at the board, then stepped onto the floor as the day team filtered in. Diane caught her eye and gave a small nod, a passing of weight of trust. Emma felt it settle, solid and earned. For the first time since Brock had charged through the doors, the hospital didn't brace. It stood. The first night Emma officially took the trauma nurse-led role, nothing dramatic happened. No sirens stacked at the bay. No shouting in the waiting room. No names whispered with fear attached. The ER moved the way it was supposed to, busy, imperfect, human. And that Emma knew was the real test. She arrived early, reviewed staffing, checked supply levels, adjusted assignments with a quiet confidence that no longer raised eyebrows. When Diane handed over the board, there was no tension between them, just trust. "Call me if you need backup," Diane said, already halfway to the door. Emma nodded. "Always." The shift unfolded in fragments: a broken wrist, a diabetic crisis, an elderly man with pneumonia who insisted on apologizing for taking up space. Emma knelt beside his bed and told him gently that this was exactly where he belonged, around 130A. A call came in from County Dispatch. A domestic disturbance. Possible assault. Male suspect restrained. The room tensed instinctively. Memories too fresh to ignore. Emma felt it ripple and cut it off before it grew. "We follow protocol," she said calmly. "Same as always." When the patient arrived, he was nothing like Brock. Smaller, scared, bleeding from a cut above his eye. He flinched when hands came near him. Emma watched the team mirror her tone, her pace. No one rushed, no one escalated. The man calmed, breathing, slowed story emerged. Violence diffused without force. Dr. Patel met Emma's eyes over the curtain and smiled. Later, during a lull, Emma stepped into the supply room and leaned against the cool metal shelves. She let herself breathe, really breathe for the first time in days. Her phone buzzed. A message from Keene. "Charges are holding. More indictments coming." "You did good," Emma typed back. "We did." She slipped the phone away and returned to the floor. Just before dawn, a nurse approached her hesitantly. "Hey, Emma. Yes, I just wanted to say, when that guy came in, I remembered what you told me. About breathing. About not quitting." Emma smiled. "You remembered because you're capable." The nurse nodded, eyes shining, and went back to work. As the sun began to creep through the high windows, Emma walked the length of the ER, checking in, listening, noticing. The floor felt different, not quieter, but steadier, like it trusted itself again. She paused near the entrance where Brock had charged in days earlier. The glass doors slid open and shut, letting in ordinary people with ordinary emergencies. No fear, no spectacle, just life. Diane returned briefly to grab a forgotten folder. She stopped when she saw Emma standing there. "You okay?" Diane asked. Emma nodded. "Yeah." Diane hesitated, then said, "You know, when you took him down, I thought that was the moment. The big one." Emma turned to her. "It wasn't." Diane frowned. Then what was? Emma looked around the ER, the nurses moving with purpose, the patients being heard, the absence of dread. "This," she said. "What comes after?" Diane smiled softly. "Damn." By the end of the shift, exhaustion set in the honest kind. Emma handed off to the day lead, finished her notes, and stepped outside into the cool morning air. The city stretched awake in front of her. Traffic hummed. Somewhere, a siren wailed and faded. She thought of Brock Vance locked away and talking now, not because he wanted to, but because silence no longer protected him. She thought of Mark Holloway facing consequences he'd convinced himself would never come. And she thought of the people inside those walls who would never know how close things had come, or how carefully they'd been held back from the edge. Emma pulled her jacket tighter and walked to her car. As she drove away, the hospital shrank in her rearview mirror, but the weight of it stayed settled, chosen. Power, she'd learned, didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wore scrubs. Sometimes it spoke softly. Sometimes it simply refused to step aside. And sometimes when a 7-foot giant charged through the doors, it stood its ground, not to be seen, not to be praised, but because someone had to. Emma Carter didn't look back. She didn't need to. What happened in that ER wasn't really about strength. It was about presence. In real life, the people who change outcomes aren't always the loudest, the biggest, or the ones with titles stitched onto their chests. Often they're the ones who stay calm when fear is contagious. The ones who step forward when everyone else steps back. The ones who refuse to look away not because they're fearless, but because they understand the cost of silence. Emma didn't win because she was stronger than a 7-foot giant. She won because she knew who she was before the chaos arrived. That's the lesson. When pressure hits at work, in family, in moments where doing the right thing might cost you comfort or approval, your real character shows up fast. You can choose the easy route, protect yourself, stay quiet, let someone else handle it. Or you can choose responsibility. You can choose to stand where you're needed, even if no one thanks you, even if the consequences are heavy. Not every act of courage looks dramatic. Sometimes it's a steady voice. Sometimes it's restraint. Sometimes it's refusing to let power bully truth into silence. And the world changes because of those moments, quietly, permanently. If this story resonated with you, tell us in the comments where are you watching from and what time is it right now. We read every single one. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories about integrity, courage, and standing your ground, subscribe to the channel. More powerful stories are coming and you won't want to miss the next one.